Openness may not completely disarm prejudice, but it's a good place to start. This is a quote by Hendrik Herzberg. My next guest, Josh Reimer, is a leading Canadian LGBTQ content creator. He's a content creator who has won multiple awards and has a vast and diverse audience. And he is open. He's open to his exciting experiences and sharing them, to his sad ones, to his adventures around the world as he travels. We discuss Josh's progression to become one of the leading content creators in the LGBTQ community, as well as some of the obstacles he's faced and the rewarding experiences that he cherishes. I am proud to welcome content creator Josh Reimer. Coming up next on Rachel Bexton Connects. Today is an exciting day. I am joined by Josh Reimer, lifestyle content creator, producer, and host, leading Canadian LGBTQ content creator. And there's a lot more behind that title and bio, which we'll get into. It's thrilling to have you today, Josh. Thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, I have known Josh for quite some time, working in public relations. I've been in touch with him, and he's been at events in which I've hosted with clients and things like that. And he's kind of, I describe you, Josh, as one of the originals when it comes to the digital social media scene here in British Columbia. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I would say I'm an OG because I've been at this for a long time before being an influencer or a content creator was a thing.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's always awesome talking to people who have been in the digital space for a long time. They can see the evolution and they can kind of see what works and doesn't. But just kind of backing up, I always love at the beginning of episodes to just get a real idea who the guest is via kind of how they grew up and what their life experience has been like. So can you tell us a little bit about how it was being a kid as Josh Reimer, a youth as Josh Reimer, and kind of where you grew up and how that was like, how life was like for you?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Red Deer, Alberta, and that wouldn't be the most gay-friendly place back in the 90s. Yeah. But I had very supportive parents, and I had good friends, and I just stayed in the closet as a kid. I tried to figure it out myself. Yeah. It was a good place to grow up, and then as I became an adult, moved to a bigger city, found the LGBTQ community, found them online and offline, and grew from there. Things got better.
So growing up in a small town, I assume you knew pretty quickly that you wanted to get into a larger city where you could kind of, see a more diverse group of people who had maybe a little bit more understanding about the world. And, that small town thinking can be actually not just a stereotype. It can be small town thinking. Was that your experience?
Yeah, I knew that I just was more inclined to be in the bigger city life and more diversity. Like in high school, I was part of the STOP Club, which was Students and Teachers Opposed to Prejudice. But, it was like a group of 10 students that were all white and straight at the time. And just, us all being like, we should all love each other. But there's like nobody else around other than all these straight white students.
Right.
Like, I know there's a whole world out there. They're just not here in Red Deer, Alberta at the time.
Yeah.
So I knew there was more for me.
So you came to Vancouver?
Yeah, I went to Calgary first. That felt like a big step for me. And then Vancouver after that.
Okay. So broadcasting was your initial choice for career. Was that kind of where you started things off, or what was your kind of thinking when you first thought, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor, but I just thought, where's the career in that? That might be a fun thing to do, but it's probably very tough to make money at. So I'll go into broadcasting because it seemed very similar, but more likely that I could get a job being on the news or a reporter or something like that. Because I knew I loved being on camera. I loved presenting or entertaining. And I also happen to love behind the scenes. I've been asking for a video camera as long as I can remember. It's all I ever wanted as a kid. I finally got one actually when I was 13. It was like my favorite thing to make home movies and stuff, and I would edit them like VCR to VCR.
There you
So
go.
I kind of love both sides of broadcasting. So that's why I studied that.
Got it, got it. So then, I remember you were doing a lot of videography at when I first kind of started in PR, and I think this is when kind of digital and social media was just kind of, growing as small grass. It was just kind of starting up to be like a mainstream thing. But I remember at that time already had quite a following, and you now have over 100,000 people following you on your social media platforms. I know this takes time, but how did you build this following, and why do you think that your content online has resonated with so many people?
Well, it's definitely taken me a while, um, like 18 years to get to this point. It was not an overnight thing, but I think I've been very consistent at it. I think it comes through that I love to do it. Nobody would last this long at it if they didn't actually really enjoy it, and I get told by people a lot that they like how like they feel like I'm real or authentic. Um, I really, I put myself into everything that I do, so people kind of get to know me, whether I'm super excited about something, really irritated about something. Last year, for the first time, crying on camera about something. So I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, and then at the same time, my content's kind of themed around like come along with me to check out cool things in Vancouver and beyond. So I'm trying to treat it like I'm showing things off to a friend. So sometimes like on TikTok especially, I'm doing a lot of just sort of like it's almost like we're on FaceTime and I'm talking to you, and my other content's more edited, but still that kind of vibe of like, hey, let me show you what I'm doing. You might want to do it too.
Yes, and I wasn't planning on asking you about this, but it naturally comes to mind. Mary Sheridan, who has been on the podcast and is a friend of mine, is a best friend of yours.
Yeah.
And I see you two having adventures. I think the last one that you showed off was exploring Abbotsford, I think I saw.
Hmm.
So you two are doing some online content creation together, and she's also fantastic, kind of original digital personality in BC.
Yeah, yeah, we work so well together because obviously we have great chemistry, and we
Yeah.
both kind of get the career, get the gig, and she does a lot of travel content, which she had a different audience than me. I mean, we both have a pretty large Vancouver audience, but hers is probably more like I'd say a lot of middle-aged women, most likely, and
Yeah.
mine's more LGBTQ community. But yeah, we complement each other really well, and we have a lot of fun together. And I think especially like in our Instagram stories that comes across where we can just sort of be more fun and jokey with each other, but also in the content too.
It's funny. I when you guys are together, I find that it's comical. Like you play off each other really nicely together. It works well.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to say, I kind of see your online personality the way I would describe it. And I'm sure everyone has a different opinion, and I'm sure you have a different thought on this, but as funny, informative, visually focused, definitely very, video, a lot of kind of exploring, showing off things, very bright. How would you describe your online persona? And, what do you really want people to take away from the content or feel when they're a part of it?
Yeah, I like all those descriptions. I feel like I do hear a lot that people feel that I'm kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy, usually quite positive. Even though, like I had mentioned, I do get some rants or I was crying about something. For the most part, yeah, people, I just went live recently for the first time on TikTok, and it went really well. It's when the Americans had a break. And so I ended up getting over 50,000 people total watching my live, and just so many
Wow.
people saying how they just felt like I had such a positive vibe, and I was so happy, and I was excited about everything. So I seem to give off that kind of vibe. I think because I am a pretty happy person, just grateful to be doing what I'm doing and be able to make a career out of it, and I guess that comes across.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely does. But, on the other hand, I think I didn't see the crying piece. I'm gonna have to, you mentioned it twice now, so I'm gonna have to look it up. But I have heard, we were laughing, my husband and I were laughing, we were watching an unboxing, and you found a way to repeatedly put in, I think it was UPS or one of the delivery companies who had charged you for your pottery like a fortune to ship it from Seattle. And oh my gosh, I felt for them in that video, but not really, because I don't have a platform to be able to share all my, grievances like that and be able to kind of call people out. So I was kind of envious. But as you were doing that, that's real too, right? The happy-go-lucky and the funny is amazing, but people know that's not always the way it goes. And so being able to see you disappointed, and in this case, from what you describe, upset, is also a part of that authenticity, I guess, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really resonates with people because I can't tell you. I feel like every event I go to, someone says like, "How are you doing?" Because I saw the crying video, or just like, "Oh, congratulations on winning that award because you seem so excited." Like more people mention that than the like, "Hey, that was cool, that restaurant that you showed us."
Yeah.
Like because it's just it's the connection. And it was UPS that made me cry. So that's why I called them out again in the next video. I don't actually usually call out companies by name, but them I was just like,
That's enough. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. So I want to talk a little bit about the LGBTQ content and kind of that niche. So, you have that niche in the sense that you're very open about that part of your life and very much a part of the LGBTQ, I can't say that quickly, community. But at the same time, it's certainly not your content. I wouldn't describe as something that isn't for everyone. It really is. I mean, it's for everyone and everyone, I would think, who, for the most part, is an adult, but I guess younger people too. And I'm wondering, how do you what's your experience been like as a Canadian LGBTQ content creator? Is it mostly positive when it comes to how the online community engages with you? Do you ever have negative, ignorant engagements, and how do you manage those? Because I imagine that'd be quite infuriating.
yeah, I've definitely had my share of not supportive comments. It's kind of funny because in the beginning there was a lot, like 18 years ago when I was on YouTube, there would be a lot of anti-gay comments and whatnot. And then kind of like 10 years later, it just disappeared. Like it wasn't okay anymore to say that kind of stuff. And people would get canceled, your job would be told, whatever. So it really went quiet and things felt just like, okay, we've reached peak acceptance, Marriage
Yeah.
equality happened in the States and just everything. And now it's come back just in the last few years, the last couple of years really, I've seen it a lot more just all of a sudden the algorithm picks it up and puts it in front of people that don't want to be seeing this kind of thing, and you just get people all of a sudden being like, "You're a groomer, stay out of our bathrooms," and I'm just like, what? That doesn't even make sense for the context of what we're doing here. But you just saw a gay guy and started spouting out things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely out there. I always know a reel is reaching beyond my audience when those comments start to flow in.
Yeah, and actually, you saying that brings up something for me as well, that makes me think that the trend that you're noticing is something that's not personal to, or not strictly your experience, and I'm sure you know that. But when I was growing up, saying the N word or any type of word against someone of color was not okay. Like it was like you were really like, that's not cool. It's how I remember it anyway. My husband is a man of color, and my kids are clearly biracial. And I've noticed kids around our neighborhood and my children have experienced at school being called that word. And so I feel like you say, in the last couple years, and I don't know if it's this kind of ultra conservative thing that's kind of come from the underground, that's kind of seeped in a bit from the US. I don't know what it's all about, but it's a bit discouraging. And I talked about this with a guest at the beginning of the year, who's an immigration lawyer, who's quite concerned about, how new Canadians are being treated, and minorities in this time, a lot more verbal and physical assaults and things like that. So I hope that, people can really stand up. Even if it's not you, like if you're with someone or around it or you see it, that they can say like, like that's not okay. You can't just sit there and kind of let the person, do you find that you get a lot of people kind of standing up and speaking up for you as well online?
Yeah. Like I recently did a collaboration with Banff and Lake Louise Tourism to promote Pride, and because it also got shared on their accounts, and there's a lot of people following them, obviously that aren't LGBTQ, it started to get a lot of comments. I feel like, most people who just see it and don't care, they're just going to watch and scroll past. But the people who have a problem with it, they're going to be vocal about it.
Yeah.
But then I mentioned it in my stories, like, whoa, there's a different audience over here. And then my followers started going in and replying to a lot of the comments. And yeah, a lot of people were sort of saying just that, like, this isn't okay, You can't just say stuff like this. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's but on the same note, don't you find it kind of interesting? You were talking about 18 years ago and then the changes that kind of balanced out. And then did you notice that all the big brands were kind of knocking at your door and saying, "Do you want to work with us?"
Yeah.
Because it's, now that this is, there's recognition that we're all equal and we can all be successful and we all have money to spend.
Hmm.
You have worked with some big brands, and I'm sure they're all very great brands. But did you notice kind of that kind of picked up at the same time as more of that acceptance and real open mind, kind of fair equality really became a part of culture?
Yeah, I did definitely notice that, and I almost feel like I'm starting to feel pullback as well. I think with the Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney, when they put a trans person on a can and there was huge backlash, I think some brands are seeing that and trying to, and getting worried about being too polarizing in such a polarized world.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times, they're not going to obviously tell me specifically why, but there's been a couple times where they're just like, we decided to have a change of direction, and then they end up working with non-LGBTQ creators, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I'm sure that, well, I would hope, because I like to think that most of humanity, that we're mostly good people, but that this kind of stage is short-lived, because don't we learn from our history? I just kind of, or do we have to go back to this garbage again for a few months or a couple of years? I hope not. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, and I think it's very clear that your content resonates with anyone and everyone who has a sense of humor, wants to see the world. You've traveled to some amazing places. What your favorite places that you've gone in your travels?
Well, I got to go to South Africa actually twice in 2019, and that's pretty
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love Australia. Switzerland's beautiful. A few places in
Goodness.
Europe. I did a riverboat cruise in France, which was lovely.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's lots of great places here in Canada.
Yeah.
Abbotsford, Kamloops. There's all
Well,
kinds of
I
fun
like
stuff.
Surrey.
Yeah, that's right. I go to that's where Mary lives, so I go there all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure if you're in BC, you do, but if you are not aware, Josh Reimer has won a variety of awards. He's kind of a big deal. So he won Mr. Gay Canada in 2019, and he recently won an award for is it Best Travel Content Creator.
Yeah.
So tell us about these two awards. They both sound like, I know one was in 2019 and one was just very recently, but tell us about both and how that felt, winning those.
Amazing. Yeah, so the Mr. Gay Canada, it was sort of based on being a public figure because I'm also on Out TV, which is our national LGBTQ TV station. And then I volunteer with some local LGBTQ related organizations. So they kind of took all that into consideration, and I got to represent the country for the year, and go compete for Mr. Gay World in South Africa. That was one of the reasons I went there in
Very
2019.
cool.
And it's just amazing to be given a title like that and to get that sort of recognition. And then it also helped when I was going around doing my travel content. I got to, speak at some Pride festivals and whatnot, wear a sash. So that was pretty cool. And then this most recent one is really special to me because it was based on voting, and I was kind of the underdog in the competition. There were 8 people, and I was the only Canadian nominated. And so just when I found out I was nominated, I was like, this is amazing. But then I was able to get my following to really go out in full force and vote for me and win the thing. And that feels super special. And also just sort of like, okay, see, I can, like, I do have a relationship with these people. It's a real thing, and they are my online friends. And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it gave me some, it made it real.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point because, so there's always that question of, do the big numbers mean anything? Well, clearly in your case they do, right? Because, those numbers are the people who are out voting for you for things like this and
Hmm.
engaging with you constantly, I'm sure. Do you ever have people who are kind of, I mean, I don't know if this exists. Like, I'm not a content creator, and certainly not one. Well, I suppose I am with the podcast, but not one anywhere near to where you're at. And I guess my question is, do you ever have people who kind of see you as a little bit of a mini celebrity, and they're kind of really, they recognize you, or they comment a lot, or do you ever encounter that?
I do. It's really funny because I always say like 99.9% of the world just doesn't have a clue who I am. Like it's just this weird realm that we're in of micro celebrity. But I will go to the grocery store and someone will be like, "Oh, hi, Josh. God, I love your content." Like they get
Yeah.
like visibly shaky and excited, and it's just so funny because it's like nobody else in here cares at all about who I am, has a clue, but you're so excited because yeah, it's just I'm in their algorithm, so they're seeing me over and over, and then all of a sudden there I am in real life. Or of course, when I go to Pride festivals, if they recognize me from TV, then it's like, oh, he's actually a TV person. But Out TV is a small TV station with a niche audience, so
Yeah. Yeah.
again, most people wouldn't have a clue who I am.
No, yeah, and I think it's like, when you are probably a bit taken aback because you're not creating content, you're maybe in the grocery store picking out tomatoes or whatever you're doing, and then all of a sudden it's kind of you're back in this world where am I online? Am I, in the real world?
Right.
That's funny. I've always wanted to ask people this. So I've seen some of your unboxing videos. Josh, given his following, gets a lot of PR and marketing drops. And for those of you who aren't a content creator or a PR professional like myself, PR drops are, when marketers or PR professionals will send a package of their product or send a special gift or something along those lines in order to kind of, announce something in hopes that Josh, that you'll post about it or that you'll show something related to the brand or whatever it is that they're launching or announcing. And Josh gets a lot of these. And so I've seen a couple unboxing videos where he has like a pile of deliveries. It looks like you have like 20 boxes of things and you've been waiting to open them. So do you like all these deliveries? I've always wondered this. Like, I think it would be pretty cool. But I mean, I guess after a while, if they start to really pile up and you're busy, it'd be quite overwhelming. Tell me about drops and deliveries. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a cool perk of what I do because who doesn't want to get sent free stuff? Um, yeah, I really I got the idea of doing sort of this unboxing reel by seeing somebody big in LA who did it, and she would have like 50 boxes, and she'd be entertaining in the way she unboxed it. And I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of a cool concept because I can't really like make content for each free thing I get.
Yeah.
Generally, I'm being paid for a reel or an individual post. I could just constantly do stories, but I'm also trying to kind of limit, I like make my stories more of a behind the scenes entertaining kind of thing, which that can work into too. But I just was like, what else can I do? And then yeah, so I thought, okay, I'll wait to collect some, and then I can unbox it. And I kind of wait till I have something that I think is a great starter. That's sort of an interesting, cool hook. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to start with like, I got a toaster, but yeah, I could be like, hey, I got this like big plant,
Yeah.
and it's like a Christmas
Oh,
tree.
I dropped that
Recognize
plant.
that?
And Josh wasn't even in town when I dropped it.
Yeah, but I still got it. Um, yeah, or I even used the thing that got returned to me from or sent me by UPS with a $200 bill. At least I could start it off with like UPS sent me a $200 bill. Also, here's everything else that I got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
so
it ended with the blender.
yeah, exactly.
Yes. You had received flowers from a company and you didn't have a vase, so you put them in a blender. And you're right. Unless you would have said it, I didn't notice.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
So you're right. I was laughing at that video. That was really funny. I have spoken about this topic with
I think every digital content creator who's been on the podcast, because I think it's really important. And it seems to be something that some corporations and organizations just aren't getting. And I think it's really important because I'm often the one that has to deliver this message. And I would love it if it was something that was clearly understood. But, you know, it's okay to not kind of get how the digital world works sometimes. And so, you know, content creation takes time. Josh is a videographer. He has a broadcasting degree. He knows how to do more with content than I could ever dream of. I basically sit at this microphone and speak, and my producer does the rest. There was about a 30-minute lead up to this conversation, actually, with tech problems due to my ignorance. But anyway, Josh has skills, and it takes time to put together these videos and these amazing pieces that reach a very large community online, or that an organization or a company is going to want to use as content. And I know that there are still companies that expect that content for little to nothing, either no payment or maybe like an overnight stay or something like that. And really, if we're a professional and you're a contractor, you're not going to be paid with a meal, right? You're going to be paid with what your services are worth. Does that happen a lot, where you get organizations, companies expecting you to do a lot of work for them for free, which is essentially what that is? And can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, unfortunately, it does happen way too often. And I think, I want them to sort of see how it's actually in their best interest to pay someone like me, not just because I'm like, please value me and my time, but because if you pay me, you get to give me key messaging that I'm going to include in the reel. Mm-hmm. You get like guaranteed deliverables. We'll talk about how many stories you want to swipe up. You want to make sure that you're tagged. You get to review the video or photos. You get to review the caption, choose the date that it goes up. Like, it is in your best interest to throw me a few $100 to actually get this content that is exactly what you want, versus just give me something and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just gonna take some shots, set it to music in a montage, throw it up, not tag you. Like, I just feel like it's really in the business's best interest to pay me so that they can have control. Mm-hmm. And then it's in my best interest too to actually be able to pay the rent.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, everybody wins. And the other thing is that that wouldn't be expected of any other type of professional. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing that I'm not a content creator who works with PR in that sense. I'm kind of on the other end. So I would be the one that would be either doing it right or wrong on the other end. But I can see how that would just be incredibly irritating, because I know the time that must go into all that content creation. And then to kind of be like, well, that's not how it works. Do you respond back to the companies, and do you explain, or do you just kind of let it be?
Yeah, I do. I usually reply and sort of give that kind of spiel of just like, well, actually, this is my rate, but this is what you get in exchange for that rate. Mm-hmm. Because I want them to start to hear this from me and everybody else, I hope, as slowly, to be like, okay, yeah, we're not going to get the kind of content, the quality of content that we want if we don't start paying these people. Mm-hmm. And just, again, try to position it in their best interest. And then if it's really egregious, mm-hmm. as has happened twice, once with a hotel and once with a car company, where they gave me a list of demands, including separate content that I'm not even sharing. They just wanted me to take photos and videos for them to use for marketing purposes, all in exchange for either a week of using this car with no gas money, or the hotel case, 2 nights at the hotel, but I had to get myself there. Mm-hmm. It's not in Vancouver, and do my own food. Then I called, I made reels about it. I didn't call them out by name, but those kind of things. I was just like, can we stop this insanity? I'm a professional. How can you ask me to do all this in exchange for that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. I can imagine this like at the beginning of social media, when people were just kind of getting the hang of it, maybe. But even then, asking, okay, I want this, this, and this. When you ask someone for anything, you're going to want to know, anyway. I think mm-hmm. the point has been expressed. And I think it's important to bring this up, because it continues to happen. And I continue to see it happen to a lot of content creators in various niches and sectors. And it seems to be something that we need to talk about over and over again because it's not getting through to some. So, and, you know, I have to ask myself that question because another thing I want to mention is that sometimes I think, especially when you are outsourcing your PR and marketing, and I'm an independent PR business, you know, you're pressured by the client, and you have to be really careful with that because that's your relationship with the media and the digital content creators. Those are relationships that go past a client that you work with maybe for a project or a year. So in my opinion, you know, really, and that's, it's not about, you know, being rude to your client. It's about, you know, saying this is how it works. And it's really important that we respect the content creator. So
Yeah, and I just feel like it should get to a spot where we realize gifted means no expectations. It's a gift. You don't give a gift in any way in life in expecting, like, with a demand. If you want to pay, that comes with certain expectations, certain deliverables, and we just need to keep it that simple. If you want to offer me something gifted, I'm not going to be offended at all. But if you want to offer me something as a gift and then say, and in exchange for this gift, here's the list of things you have to do, that's where there's this disconnect.
yeah, I agree. That's a really great way to put it. Gifted means, you know, and I've had content creators ask me, what do you expect in return? And I say nothing. If you feel like you want to post about it, that'd be great. If you don't, then that's fine too. And I think that that's the expectation. You have to assume that it won't be posted about. And then if it is, then that's just a bonus. But otherwise, it's paid for content. I agree. Gifted. Yeah, you would never give someone a gift and expect. Good
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way. Okay. Another way to position it. Okay. So I wanted to talk for a second about, you know, your thoughts on what you think your content means for the LGBTQ community when it comes to rights issues, kind of educating people on things. Maybe they're from a very small town. Maybe they have not been, you know, they have not been, you know, brought up in a family where that certain things are, you know, acceptable or mainstream, or they've been taught in a very ignorant way, or who knows what the background is. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think your content, being that it's more mainstream, helps to kind of really make a difference for those outside of the LGBT community to kind of really, you know, bring us together?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, definitely early on, I would see comments from people on YouTube saying, like, you're the first gay person I've ever met or seen. And some people even, you know, not often, but some people who would be like, I actually didn't like gay people until I started seeing your content. And now you've changed my mind. Like, that kind of stuff is amazing. Because a lot of it is, I think, just, you know, the unknown boogeyman. Like, you only hear these crazy stories and so until you actually see someone, you're like, oh, he's actually pretty, like, nice and normal. It just happens to be attracted to men. So yeah, I think in that way it helps. And then also, you know, more recently, like, sometimes I'll make I made a reel about the safe spaces stickers. Sometimes you go to a business and there's a little sticker on the door that's a rainbow and it says safe space. And I just talked about, like, why we have that, you know, how it's just, like, it's not meant to be a big deal. It's just so that, you know, if I walked in with my boyfriend, we could be holding hands and know that the staff there have our back if anything happened, or if a trans person went in and you know, maybe they're not as passing, it's kind of obvious that they're trans, and they can just, again, it's just like a comfort thing. It's just sort of explaining things, and sometimes in a way that's helps people who aren't part of the community, who are just sort of like, what is going on there? What is that about? Why do you need Pride for a month? Why is there a rainbow sidewalk? Those kinds of things.
Do you get those questions about pride?
Yeah.
Like, why is there pride? How would you answer that question?
Well, until recently, until the last couple of years, it was more about, like, well, there's about 70 countries in the world that still criminalize homosexuality.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, we still need to be a voice for all those people who can't have a voice, and there's still further steps to go. You know, we felt like we were getting very close to kind of full equality and acceptance here. But now things really have taken a step back, thanks to our neighbors, I think, and things are changing not in the right direction for us.
For anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's just sort of more than ever. It's kind of getting back to the original. Like, it was a protest originally, then it kind of became like a celebration of just being proud of who you are and not ashamed and not feeling the need to hide it. And now it's kind of, again, I think going back to, again, kind of a protest of like, we're here, we deserve equal rights, and the gender issues and the trans issues and all that kind of stuff, just kind of putting a spotlight on it and fighting for those rights.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's awesome. I had an uncle who was from a very small town visited me in Vancouver, and it was during Pride Week. He disappeared. We didn't know where he was. And I lived 2 blocks away from Robson Street, and the parade was going on. And we found him, and he was at the parade, and he had bees all over, and he was like, he was having a blast. And it was so funny, Josh, because he was like the most conservative. I don't know if he'd ever met anyone who was gay in his life. And he's like, I don't think he even knew what was going on, but he didn't care. He was having a blast, and we just thought it was hilarious. So he loved Pride. So what is next for you, Josh Reimer, online? What do you have planned? I know that you have everything from your YouTube presence, your videos, you do guest segments without TV, you do guest writing for various outlets. Do you have anything in mind that you'd like to accomplish in the months or years to come?
Well, I mean, I feel like this year's going to be a busy one for me for travel, because I've got that title. I just this month got the title of last year's best travel content creator. So now I got to work it for the year and do a lot more travel and get a bunch more content. So working on a bunch of trips to make some cool content out of that stuff. And I don't know. Just I've got working on a podcast with my bestie Mary.
Awesome.
So we want to do a travel podcast. The sort of working title is The Gay and the Girl's Guide to Travel.
Amazing. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, talking about the adventures that we go on together, because we travel a lot together, and the ups and downs of all the trips and our tips and highlights. So that's probably enough at this point, because I am a team of one, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I might need to hire someone. Maybe that's coming up.
Awesome. So you've got a podcast on the go, a lot of travel, best travel content creator. Wow, that is amazing. Do you have a trip booked right now?
Well, my next trip is to Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. I am looking forward to some sun.
Awesome.
And some warmth.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Josh Reimer has been producing content in the digital space here in British Columbia for a while. He is your go-to guy for digital content creation, especially video, which is really, video is everything right now. And will continue to be. I think people are kind of, when it comes to the visuals, photos are awesome, but I think they're really kind of moving to this video form as a preferred. And Josh, I think what you do is fun. It is brave. You know why? Because, you're a travel content creator, and like you say, not all places in the world are accepting of everyone and everything. And when people have said things to me, they're unconned online, and I go in the corner and have a big cry about it. And it's like, it's not easy. And to be, standing for something that means a lot, we need that. So thank you for that, and the content that you create, and the humor that you bring to the world, and the joy. Thank you for it. It's special. So.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Thanks.
No, I mean it. So I want to ask you, as I do with all my guests when I end the conversation, is regarding nonprofits. So I always ask about 1 or 2 nonprofits that they love, that they would like to, people to learn more about. Do you have a couple of favorite nonprofits that you'd like to share?
Sure. I'm a big fan of the Dr. Peter Center, which is part of the Dr. Peter AIDS Foundation. They help people who have HIV/AIDS and usually some sort of mental issue they're working through, and low to no income. They've got a center just downtown in the West End where they provide food and counseling and even some accommodations, really help out that community. So love donating and volunteering with them. And probably along the same vein is A Loving Spoonful, which takes food to people who have HIV/AIDS and often complications that came from that, and provides them with nutritious meals at their homes.
Fantastic. Yes, I know of both. So we will tag the Dr. Peter Center and also Loving Spoonful. Thank you so much, Josh Reimer, content creator, videographer, leading Canadian LGBTQ, I can't say it quickly, LGBTQ content creator, producer, and host. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, Rachel. Thanks so much. Be kind and truly connect. You are listening to Rachel Thexton Connect.